Continuing with my modified chronological Clone Wars order, I hopped over to the 5th arc in the timeline, the second battle of Geonosis. For part 1 of this video, I watched Season 2, Episode 5, Landing at Point Rain, and Season 2, Episode 6, Weapons Factory. Do you like Star Wars? I like Star Wars too. Click subscribe. Let's jump in. Season 2, Episode 5, Landing at Point Rain. Out of all the episodes I've watched so far, this episode without a doubt has the best action. I mean, anything can have action, right? Big explosions, lots of laser fire, destruction, all that jazz, but this episode played it brilliantly. Many scenes were without a doubt inspired by the D-Day invasion. You had the ships flying through the air taking fire from flat cannons, ships destroyed left and right, just like the paratroopers on D-Day. You had tanks approaching enemy locations, but with tank traps and anti-tank obstacles placed on the route, just like D-Day. You had the cliff that Anakin and Ahsoka scaled to reach an enemy battery position, just like Point de Hoc on D-Day. The parallels are unquestionable, and by using and drawing inspiration from real-world scenarios, it only makes the action more believable, more tense. Before I watched the Clone Wars, I kind of always assumed it was primarily for kids. It's a cartoon. Kids, cartoons, cartoons, kids, right? Makes sense. But I could not have been more wrong. And this episode without a doubt puts a nail in the coffin of that thought. So Poggle, a Geonosis leader, has a droid factory on the planet on Geonosis. The factory is pumping out weapons, pumping out droids, and the Republic forces amass a huge invasion force to take care of the problem. I loved hearing the tactical speak from the Republic forces, strategizing battle plans, continuing to push forward when problems arise, and always keeping the rendezvous point in mind. Even when the communication goes down, the mission continues. Multiple skirmishes taking place on a larger scale battle until forces converge, and an admiral who won't commit reinforcements or air support to a specific location because he's looking at the bigger picture. And if he diverts forces from one area to help another, the entire attack could be compromised. It was really neat to see. Obi-Wan was put out of commission pretty early on. His ship was shot down. He and another clone were the only survivors in his ship. Events like this are important. Seeing our main characters, our heroes in sticky situations creates tension, and it makes the episode way more interesting than if he was just running around swinging his lightsaber and cutting down enemies left and right. We get to see that our heroes, while they are incredibly powerful, are only human, or only a small piece of a larger picture. So Anakin and Ahsoka are cut off by a huge wall, a big fortress. They can't get past it. The clones are pinned down behind the fortress, with enemies firing down at them from the top. And Anakin and Ahsoka scale the wall and begin to eliminate the enemy forces that are on top of the wall. They toss down some explosives with a droid, and kablamo! The wall comes tumbling down. Anakin calls to the Admiral for reinforcements, the same Admiral that previously would not give reinforcements, but the Admiral supplies a squadron of Y-Wing bombers which swoop down and save Obi-Wan and his troops, who were surrounded and the odds were definitely stacked against them. So yeah, I really liked this episode. Sometimes with these action-heavy episodes, I kinda zone out, because sometimes they're not all that interesting. But this episode was awesome. And it was almost all action. But the way they shot the action, the way they framed the shots, the way everyone acted, the tactical side of things, the movement of troops, the consequences, the vulnerability, the difficulty of the battle, all of it made the action so much more interesting and suspenseful. Oh, and one of my favorite shots in the episode was when Anakin and some clone troopers ran through the enemy shield. It was this super long side shot of them running, panning across the battle, action in the foreground, action in the background, and our focus was always on Anakin and the crew. The sequence was just really well done. I love the continuous side shot. I think overall, I'm just a sucker for those types of shots in anything. After watching Landing at Point Rain, I hopped on over to the next episode in the list, Season 2, Episode 6, Weapons Factory. So with the initial invasion finished, the Republic forces are making their way to the droid factory. The headbutting, tough love dynamic between Ahsoka and Anakin is on full display. When Ahsoka briefs some clone troopers on the battle plan, Anakin keeps interrupting her, finishing her sentences, frustrating Ahsoka. So the plan is to distract Poggle's forces by just marching towards the factory without cover, like sitting ducks, while Ahsoka and another Padawan sneak their way into the belly of the factory. After watching the previous episode, one full of tactically smart decisions, detailed plans, and problem solving, this episode felt a little wonky to me. You're just gonna walk towards the front gate in the open, taking massive casualties? Okay. I understand you want to create a distraction, but is this really the best way? The difference between the previous episode and this episode in terms of battle plans is strange. They just don't really jive together. But the droids have a secret weapon, a big super tank, and nothing in the Republic's arsenal can penetrate the super tank's armor. A bunch of the tanks start rolling towards the Republic forces. They're crossing a bridge. and Anakin and Luminara monkey bar underneath the bridge, setting explosives, and once they're in the clear, they detonate the charges, sending the super tanks plummeting to their doom. Ahsoka and Luminara's Padawan Barriss went through a labyrinth underneath the factory and found their way to the factory's main reactor. They plant bombs on it, but are ultimately caught. The bombs are removed, but they're able to fight off the troops that are holding them up in the reactor room, and what comes next is my favorite scene in the entire episode. Ahsoka and Barriss accept their fate. They realize that the only way to help the allies above is to use the tank's weapon to blow up their reactor, which they think will ultimately kill them as well. So they do it. They fire at the reactor, which brings the entire structure down. I loved this sequence. The sound effects muffle and almost mute as loud and somber music begins to play. It's a really great scene. One of terror for Anakin, one of acceptance for Ahsoka. Ultimately, of course, they survive, but the willingness to sacrifice yourself for your friends and the greater good was a trait that we found out Ahsoka unquestionably has. Overall, the episode was okay. I without a doubt prefer the first episode in the arc. Let me know what you guys thought of these two episodes in the comment section below. HelloGreedo, out.